Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
I turned 39 last Saturday. No confetti, no surprise dinner, no phone call from my parents. Instead, at 10:36 in the morning, I got the same goddamn text I've been getting since my early 30s. Sorry, we've been busy. We'll call soon. Word for word, identical to last year's. I checked because of course I kept the messages. 5 years in a row. Copy-paste level indifference. I stared at the screen for a solid minute, my coffee going cold in my hand, and I felt something in me tip, just slightly out of place. It was like hearing a door click shut behind you, soft but final. And then, like every masochistic birthday before it, I opened Facebook. There they were. Again. My mom, my dad, my sister Lauren, all in matching sun hats on a beach in Charleston. I recognized the view because it was the same damn Airbnb they'd been renting for Lauren's birthday for the past 3 years. Same wicker furniture on the deck. Same blue and white striped towels. This year, though, Lauren had an extra accessory, a Louis Vuitton purse in her lap. And of course, she tagged our mom in the caption, "Thanks for the best birthday weekend ever. Love you guys." I don't think I blinked for 30 seconds. "Babe," my fiancé Daniel asked from the hallway, probably wondering why I was frozen with my phone in one hand and my coffee still halfway to my mouth. I didn't answer immediately. I just handed him the phone, let him read the message, and scroll the photos himself. He exhaled like someone who'd been trying to be patient for too long. "Jesus. Again?" I just nodded. He looked me straight in the eye, like he'd been rehearsing this in his head for months. "Why do you keep letting them do this to you?" The question didn't sting. Not this time. Because for once, it didn't feel like judgment. It felt like someone finally saying what I was afraid to say out loud. That maybe it wasn't just a mistake. That maybe it was a pattern. That maybe this wasn't something they were forgetting to do, but something they were choosing not to do. And honestly, how many damn years does it take before a mistake starts to look like a decision? I'd been letting them slide for too long. I told myself every year that people get busy, that family means well, that it wasn't personal. But it was. It had always been personal. I was the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who didn't need attention or drama or rescuing. Lauren was the one who cried, who flaked, who totaled her car 3 times before she turned 27 and still got her insurance paid for by Dad. Me? I paid my own tuition, cooked my own meals, and Ubered home alone from a dance after a miscarriage 2 years ago because Mom said she didn't think I wanted company. She mailed me a book about grief 4 weeks later. No note. No call. I'd carried this weight like it was my duty. Like I was holding the family structure together with the strength of my silence. But now, looking at those smiling faces on a sunlit beach, holding mojitos, toes in the sand, while I ate leftover spaghetti in flannel pajamas, it hit me. I wasn't holding the family together. I was holding myself hostage inside of it. So I did something I'd never done before. I opened the text thread from my mom, stared at that bland little "sorry, we've been busy" line, and I typed back just 5 words that felt like a scream into a pillow. "Don't bother calling. I'm done." I stared at the screen. My finger hovered. I could feel my pulse in my ears. Because once you send something like that, you don't get to unsend it. There's no "just kidding" that comes after 5 years of silent hurt and swallowed birthdays. I sent it. The second it left my phone, something inside me cracked open, but it didn't hurt. It felt spacious. Like I had finally made room for air. Daniel didn't say anything. He just pulled me into a hug so tight it pushed the breath out of me. "You did the right thing," he whispered, and I believed him. For the first time in years, I believed someone who told me I wasn't overreacting. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Mom, are you serious right now?" That was it. "No, I'm sorry, no, let's talk." Just disbelief. Like I was the one who had crossed the line. I looked at Daniel. "She actually thinks I'm joking." He nodded slowly. "They always do. Until you stop coming back." And that's when it hit me hardest of all. They weren't going to change. This wasn't some awkward phase or bad timing or miscommunication. It was who they were. Who they had always been. And for years, I let that be enough for me. Not anymore. I put my phone face down on the table, stood up, and walked into the kitchen. The spaghetti was cold. I didn't care. I dumped the whole thing into the trash. There was no candle, no card, no happy birthday. But there was silence. And that silence, for the first time in my life, didn't feel empty. It felt clean. And somehow that was enough to make me smile. It's strange what you remember when you finally decide to stop pretending something didn't hurt. For me, it started with birthdays, but it never really ended there. The more I sat in the silence after sending that message, "Don't bother calling, I'm done," the more I started playing back years of moments I had neatly filed under "they meant well." I used to think those memories were benign, like old photos with the color faded out. But no, they were sharper than I remembered, each one cutting me a little bit more now that I was finally letting myself look at them honestly. The first birthday they missed was when I turned 32. I remember it because I'd made reservations at this tiny Italian place that took 2 weeks to book, and I even had them hold the back patio table with the string lights I knew Mom would love. That morning, she called and said they couldn't make it because Dad had a bad gout flare-up and was resting with his feet elevated. "Next weekend, okay, sweetie," she said, like that made it even. It didn't. That weekend came and went, and suddenly Lauren was the one who really needed them because she'd locked herself out of her apartment and had a panic moment in front of her neighbors. They drove 4 hours to bring her spare key and stayed the night at a Marriott. That same night, I made myself pasta at home and pretended I didn't care. I posted a selfie with a glass of wine, and the caption read, "Birthday vibes. Just me, myself, and Pinot Noir." Everyone commented how cute and strong I looked. No one knew I cried in the bathroom between bites. The second time it happened was the year after. That's when the excuses started getting lazier. "Flights are just too expensive around this time of year," my dad had said, as if I hadn't just seen him check into a golf resort in Scottsdale on Facebook the week before. Lauren posted a boomerang of Mom sipping a frozen daiquiri, tagged #DesertGirlsWeekend. I remember zooming in on the photo because I could swear Lauren's nails were a new color. Later, she told me it was a mother-daughter mani-pedi day. Mom needed the break, she said, and something about the way she said it made me feel like I was the stress she needed a break from. By the third year of this, I was 28 going on 33, and something inside me had grown dull, like a switch flipped off so I could stop noticing how obvious it had become. Yes, I know that math doesn't make sense, but that's exactly how it felt, like I was aging out of my own damn birthday, getting older and more invisible all at once. I stopped organizing dinners. I stopped reminding them. I figured if I expected nothing, they couldn't disappoint me anymore. Spoiler alert, they still did. That same year, I got my wisdom teeth out and I asked my mom, just once, if she could be there to pick me up. She said she'd check her schedule, which was code for I won't. She didn't. Daniel was out of town for work, and I was too embarrassed to ask a friend, so I Ubered myself home groggy and half-numb, tipped the driver $20 for pretending not to notice I was drooling on my hoodie. That night, I lay on the couch with frozen peas pressed to my jaw and watched reruns of Wheel of Fortune because it was the only thing I could keep up with while drugged up and puffy. 2 days later, Mom sent me a text. "Feeling better? Sorry, just saw your message." I never even texted her. What's worse is I kept telling myself stories to make it okay. I'd think, well, Lauren's had a rougher go, or Mom's probably just dealing with her own stuff, or at least they didn't forget completely. I clung to crumbs like a starving dog, grateful for scraps of attention, convinced that if I just kept being understanding, I'd eventually earn something full, a real effort, a real call. A damn purse from Nordstrom or a day at the beach where someone remembered I existed. But the thing is, you can only gaslight yourself for so long before the whole facade starts to crack. And that text I sent, 5 words, simple and final, was like throwing a rock through the stained glass window I'd been polishing for years. So when her reply finally came in, "Are you serious right now?" I wasn't angry. I was insulted. Because the answer was yes. Of course I was serious. Of course I meant it. And the fact that she still saw it as a joke, as drama, as temporary moodiness, proved more than anything else that she'd never really heard me. Not once. I held the phone in my hand and stared at that message, rereading it like it would eventually say something different. It didn't. It never would. Because when people are used to you shrinking yourself to make them comfortable, the moment you take up even 1 inch of space, they think you're being unreasonable. But I wasn't being unreasonable. I was just done. Done pretending birthdays didn't matter. Done telling myself they were trying. Done paying the emotional toll of being the easy daughter. And most of all, I was done pretending I hadn't noticed. Because I had. I noticed everything. The first voicemail came just after 8 the next morning, and by the time the 10th one hit, at 1:15 in the afternoon, I had stopped listening entirely. I just watched the screen light up again and again with Mom's cell and felt the kind of dead calm you only get when a storm has already hit and you're just watching the debris settle. I didn't answer. I didn't respond. I didn't even check the transcriptions anymore. I let them pile up in silence like a stack of old junk mail, urgent on the outside, empty on the inside. Daniel came into the room around lunch, holding his sandwich in one hand and raising an eyebrow at the buzzing phone. "That 5 stages of grief thing? I think your mom skipped straight to bargaining and parked there with the engine running." I didn't laugh, but I smirked. Because he wasn't wrong. On the second day, the email came from Dad. He always liked to keep a veneer of professionalism, like family was just another job you could manage with a subject line and a bullet-pointed list. The email was titled, "Without irony, we always did our best." No greeting, just a paragraph about miscommunications, hurt feelings, and how this sort of thing tears families apart. Not once did he say "I'm sorry." Not once did he ask "What can we do to fix this?" It was all gentle accusations wrapped in Midwestern politeness, the kind of message that sounds reasonable if you're not the one it's directed at. He wrote, "We don't understand where this came from." Which was almost funny if it hadn't been so goddamn sad. Because if they didn't know where it came from, then they weren't listening at all. Or worse, they never intended to. That same night, Lauren called. I stared at her name on the screen for a full minute, debating whether to pick up, knowing exactly how the conversation would go. But curiosity got the better of me, or maybe it was habit, so I answered. She was crying before she even said hello. "I don't know what to say to you," she choked out. "Mom's a mess. Dad's not sleeping. They think you hate them." I stayed silent. She kept going. "And now I'm stuck in the middle of all this? Why would you do this to me?" And there it was, the sentence that finally clarified everything. Not "Why did you feel this way?" Not "What did they do to make you feel so shut out?" But "Why did you do this to me?" I took a breath and answered slowly because I didn't want to yell. I wanted her to hear it clear and clean. "I didn't do anything to you, Lauren. I just stopped pretending I was okay being ignored." She sniffled. "But they're your parents." "Yeah," I said. "And I'm their daughter." Funny how that part never seemed to matter as much. She started to say something else, but I hung up. I didn't trust myself to stay calm if I heard one more tearful plea without even a single acknowledgement of what they'd done. They weren't trying to understand. They were trying to reset the clock. They wanted the version of me who stayed quiet, smiled at the table, bought her own birthday cake, and told everyone she loved vanilla even though she didn't. I gave them silence instead. For days, they kept trying. A flower delivery arrived with a note that said, "Hope these make things feel normal again." The irony of that sentence hit harder than any insult. Normal was the problem. Normal was what I was walking away from. Then, a week later, the retirement party invitation came. Cream-colored cardstock, embossed gold letters, RSVP link at the bottom like it was a damn wedding. Join us to celebrate Robert's 35 years of dedication to Thompson Steelworks. And under that, in my mom's handwriting, She'd scrawled, "We'd love to have you there, sweetheart. Let's put this all behind us, okay?" I laughed. Out loud. Alone in the kitchen, clutching the card like it might catch fire in my hands. 35 years of loyalty to a company that gave him a plaque and a sheet cake, and he showed up for them more than he ever did for me. Daniel walked in, saw the invitation, and asked gently, "So?" I didn't even think about it. "I'm not going." He nodded. "Good." I walked to my desk, opened Facebook, and typed just one line. Short and sharp and final. "Sometimes peace costs everything you thought you owed." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't post a selfie. I didn't need a single like. Because it wasn't for them, it was for me. Let them spin. Let them rage. Let them cry and accuse and twist it into whatever story they need to tell themselves to avoid the truth. I was done being their scapegoat, their invisible support beam, their reliable disappointment. I wasn't going to be anyone's guilt project anymore. And for once, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. There is a particular kind of satisfaction in choosing silence over screaming, in deciding that instead of fighting to be heard in a room where no one listens, you simply get up and walk out without slamming the door behind you. That's what I did. No dramatic goodbye. No 3-paragraph explanation. No midnight emotional breakdown over the phone. I just stopped showing up. And if you've never tried it, let me tell you, it feels like slipping out of a coat you didn't realize had been strangling you for years. First thing I did was unfollow them all on social media. Not block, unfollow. There's a difference. Blocking is loud. Unfollowing is surgical. It's the kind of move that says, "I saw everything I needed to see. I'm just not interested anymore." I took my time with it, too. I didn't rush through the process like I was angry. I did it slowly, methodically, like clearing out a house before you sell it. Lauren went first. Every curated brunch post, every filtered spa day selfie, every look at my perfect life caption vanished from my feed in one silent tap. Then my mom, with her quotes about forgiveness and strength she never actually practiced. And finally my dad, who posted more about his smoker grill and lawn maintenance than he ever did about his kids. But even that was too much space in my world. Then came the texts. I didn't answer any of them. Not the "we're worried about you" ones. Not the guilt-laced "still your family" ones. Not even the cheap shot ones from Lauren when she realized I had unfollowed her. I didn't even read them past the preview bubble. I blocked every number, one by one, until my phone went completely quiet. It was glorious. Christmas came, and with it, a card. One of those fake happy family photos where they're all dressed in matching outfits, posing in front of a tree they probably didn't even decorate themselves. No message inside except the typed words, "Wishing you joy and peace this holiday season, love, the Harrisons." No signature. No handwritten note. Just mass-produced affection mailed in a red envelope. I tore it in half, slowly, right at the crease, and slid the 2 pieces back into the envelope. I didn't include a letter. I didn't need to. I just scribbled "return to sender" on the front in thick black marker and dropped it off at the post office the next morning on my way to yoga. That was the kind of revenge I could live with, quiet, cold, effective. Then I booked a trip to Sedona. I didn't tell anyone. Not Daniel, not friends, not coworkers. I just put in the PTO request, packed a week's worth of desert-colored clothes, and left. The Airbnb I chose had a private deck that overlooked red rock formations, and I spent 5 days waking up with the sun and falling asleep with the stars. I didn't cry. I didn't spiral. I just breathed. I drank wine and read books and hiked trails without checking my phone. I posted 1 photo a day, nothing flashy, just moments. A glass of sangria with sunlight cutting through it. My toes in red dust. A view from Cathedral Rock with the caption, "Quiet isn't lonely when it feels earned." The messages started pouring in by day 3. Not from my parents, of course. They were still blocked, but from cousins, second cousins, friends of the family. People who hadn't spoken to me in years were suddenly flooding my DMs with confused concern. "Hey, is everything okay? Or, your mom says you've been going through something. One message from my cousin Melanie read, "Wait, you're in Sedona alone? That doesn't sound like you." And I realized just how little of me anyone had ever bothered to get to know. That's when the truth started spilling out of me like a faucet I couldn't turn off. I started answering the ones that felt genuine. Nothing angry, just honest. They haven't visited me in 6 years. Ask them how many of my birthdays they've shown up for. Ask why Lauren gets gifts and I get excuses. The silence that followed those messages was louder than any argument we ever had. Then, one night, after posting a photo of the desert skyline with nothing but a heart in the caption, my phone lit up with a new message. It was from my Aunt Carol, my mom's older sister, who hadn't reached out in over a year. Her message was short, but it cut through me with a precision I didn't expect. I had no idea. "Your mom said you were unwell." That word, unwell, sat there on the screen like a fresh insult hidden in fake concern. It wasn't just that she had lied. It was how easy the lie rolled off her tongue. As if the truth, that I was fed up, heartbroken, and reclaiming my self-worth, was too inconvenient to share. So she painted me as broken, not betrayed. And that's when I knew they weren't sad because they lost me. They were sad because they lost control. The letter arrived in a pale blue envelope that looked like it came straight out of some dusty Hallmark drawer, the kind of envelope that screams sentimentality before you even open it, like its entire mission is to soften you before you read a single word. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the counter for 2 days, untouched, next to a pile of grocery receipts and a reminder to schedule a dentist appointment. I wasn't avoiding it. I was preparing. Because I knew, even before I peeled it open, what it would say, please wrapped in guilt, apologies without accountability, and the same tired phrases that meant nothing but control. When I finally sat down to read it, I did it all in one breath, because it felt like holding in a scream. 6 handwritten pages on thick linen paper, my mother's loopy cursive unchanged since I was a child, when she'd leave notes in my lunchbox telling me to smile more and eat my carrots. It started with, "I've been thinking about you nonstop," and ended with, "We just want our family back." In between were paragraphs stuffed with phrases like, "I never meant to hurt you," "This has gotten blown way out of proportion," and "You're misunderstanding things." The word sorry showed up exactly once, buried between 2 explanations about how overwhelmed they'd been the past few years. At no point did she mention a single date. Not the birthday she missed 3 years ago. Not the surgery I went through alone. Not the trip to Charleston with Lauren that coincided, to the hour, with a text saying, "Sorry, we've been busy." The omissions weren't accidents. They were strategy. If she avoided specifics, maybe I'd forget them too. That's the thing about people like her. They don't need to erase your memory. Just convince you that remembering it makes you cruel. I could have called her. I could have written back with a tear-streaked essay about how I still love them, but I need space. I could have done what they expected, melted. But I didn't. I opened my laptop, sat down with a cup of tea, and wrote the kind of reply that didn't shout or sob or beg to be seen. I just wrote the facts. In the email, I listed birthdays with no calls. I attached screenshots of text messages left on read. I reminded her of the Christmas I spent alone while they went skiing with Lauren's in-laws. I pasted the comment she left on Lauren's photo, asterisk, "You deserve the world, sweetheart," asterisk, on a day I had texted her asking if she could help me after my miscarriage, and she replied with, "That's too heavy right now." I put it all there. Not out of spite, out of clarity. Because the truth is, the people who hurt you while telling you they love you count on one thing more than anything else, that you'll never document it. When I hit send, I didn't feel rage or relief. I felt clean. 3 days passed with no response. I didn't expect one. What could she possibly say that wouldn't feel hollow after reading that list? There was no version of her that could come back from that without breaking apart entirely, and she didn't know how to be broken in front of anyone. She only knew how to perform pain in a way that still made her the victim. But Lauren didn't stay quiet. She posted a quote on Instagram over a filtered photo of her holding a latte and staring off into the middle distance like a perfume ad. The quote said, "Some people just love drama. Don't invite it into your peace." No one was tagged, of course. She's not reckless. She's strategic. But everyone who mattered knew exactly who she meant. I stared at the post for a full 5 minutes before closing the app. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't comment. I didn't even feel tempted to call her and say, "You have no idea what I've spared you from." Because I didn't need her to understand. That was the whole revelation. This was never about getting them to change. This was about realizing I didn't have to keep bleeding just to make sure they stayed comfortable. I wasn't angry anymore, not the way I used to be. I was just done feeding the beast and calling it love. Daniel asked me, a few days later, if I thought they'd ever reach out again. I said maybe, but that if they did, they'd be talking to a version of me they no longer had access to. The girl who softened every boundary because she feared being alone, she's not home anymore. He smiled and said, "So what now?" And I answered without even thinking, "Now I live. I go to work. I call friends. I drink my coffee in peace without checking my phone every 5 minutes for another guilt bomb disguised as a voicemail. I make plans for weekends that don't include dodging passive-aggressive texts. I breathe without bracing. I laugh without apologizing. I exist, finally, outside the orbit of people who only loved me when I was small enough to fit into the space they'd carved for me. So yes, Lauren, you're right. Some people do love drama. But I stopped playing my part in it. And maybe, just maybe, the best revenge isn't anger or silence, or even a long, well-written goodbye. Maybe the best revenge is simply being okay. And letting them rot wondering if you ever really loved them back.